Two films with award nominations and buzz this year include Challengers and Queer. One set in the present-day world of tennis, the other in Mexico in the 1950s. As different as they are on the surface, both movies' plots share emotional and intense journeys for their lead characters. Justin Kuritzkes is the screenwriter for both, his first works on the big screen after spending years as a playwright and author. We caught up with Kuritzkes in New York City last month to reflect on the success of his films and the journey to get here. This scene at the 2018 U.S. Open women's final between Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka, unforgettable.
And it was this very controversial match where Serena Williams was accused of receiving coaching from the sidelines. And she got really upset and said, I would never do that.
For author and playwright Justin Kuritzkes, the moment served as inspiration.
This situation struck me as intensely cinematic. You know, that you're alone on the court, there's this one other person who cares as much about what happens to you as you do, and that's the person you can't talk to. And for whatever reason, it just clicked in my head.
We can stay here.
The on-screen result? Challengers. The film is set within the world of professional tennis.
Hitting a ball with a racket is a great way to avoid having a job.
Focusing on an intense love triangle between a player turned coach,
expressing yourself, doing your thing. That's why you still have that serve.
Played by Zendaya, and former tennis rivals.
Yeah, but you're not a tennis player.
Every moment is so dramatic. And so I started to ask myself, what could I write that would be as good as this? You know, and then what would make tennis even better?
Right.
And for me, the answer to that question was, tennis would be better if I could know at every moment exactly what was at stake.
How are you going to look at me if I still can't beat Patrick Zweig?
On a microscopic level.
What?
And so that was really the thing that made me ultimately go, okay, I have to write this movie.
Art's still gonna retire.
Challengers was the first film for Kuritzkes, but by no means was it his first foray into writing.
But imagine if you could turn Patrick Zweig into a guy who wins a slam.
I grew up in a house where my parents are pretty square, which I say lovingly. You know, my dad's a doctor, my mom was a lawyer, but there were books all around the house. And I got the impression at a young age that writing books was a legitimate thing that you could do.
They might let you do that.
They might, yeah, that might be okay. And that beyond that it was like something to be revered, you know. So when I was like 10 or 11, I would write novels. There was no text, it was just the covers of novels.
But no story inside.
No, I had no idea. That was my novel.
In high school, he says he fell in love with theater, developing that voice first at Brown, working on plays at the university's production workshop.
I don't like what you've done, Andrew!
Then in New York, during his early days as a playwright.
Nobody really gets to live as a playwright, even if you're really having a great year as an off-Broadway playwright, which is what I was. You know, I never had a play on Broadway. So being a playwright essentially means that you're also a dog walker and a SAT tutor and an administrative assistant. It was interesting being a dog walker and a tutor at the same time, because they're similar jobs. You get let into people's homes,
right.
You're having a very intimate experience with somebody who means a lot to them.
Right, who they love, yeah.
And I found that people were a lot more precious about their dogs than their kids. Part of what I love about living in New York is that you can walk by a movie theater and decide on a whim to go see something.
Right. His everyday experiences lending a hand to his writing, most notable in Kuritzkes' character development.
I really hope that you can eventually find it in your heart to forgive me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's gonna be really hard.
Be it on the stage, in his novel Famous People, or his debut films, Challengers and Queer.
Hey, let's take it easy, huh? Hey, Tom.
Your characters are very relatable in that they're human. They don't seem like they're perfect.
If you're going to ask people to spend a couple hours of their lives with people, I think it does both them and you a service to give them somebody who feels like they can recognize themselves or the people they love in it.
His characters in both movies brought to the screen by Italian director Luca Guadagnino.
You know, Luca is this kind of remarkable collaborator in that he's very generous in that, you know, it's not always the norm that a director will not just invite the writer to be there the whole time, and that we kind of treat it like it was a play we were rehearsing, you know, and that the playwright was going to be in the room.
Yeah.
Because of that, I got to just spend a lot of time with Luca. And one day on set for Challengers, he just handed me this book and said, read this tonight and tell me if you'll adapt it for me.
That book?
was Queer by William S. Burroughs.
He had read as a teenager, and he'd been wanting to make into a movie since then. And I read it that night, and I immediately said yes.
Set in 1950s Mexico, the movie stars Daniel Craig as Lee,
I want to talk to you.
an American who becomes romantically obsessed with a much younger man.
How challenging is it for you as a writer to adapt something from a novel versus write your own story?
They list Baked Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, Queer was the first time I've adapted anything.
It's hot on the outside and cold inside.
There were a lot of challenges about translating Burroughs' very rich vision that is so fundamentally literary into something cinematic.
A screaming pig covered with burning brandy runs out of the kitchen and
But the great gift that I had was these characters.
And that's the heart of everything, is the
That's-
characters.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
and dies.
While his cinematic success has led to some of the fame Hollywood is better known for than Broadway,
Wait, can I get a photo? Sure.
for Kuritzkes, it remains about the craft.
Do you see yourself at some point going back into theater as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see myself as anything other than a writer right now.
So whatever it is.
Yeah, I think one of the real benefits you get from being a playwright for 10 years is that you get perspective, which is that you know that you're an artist, but on your tax forms you write dog walker, But now I write screenwriter, but I'm not dumb enough to think that that's who I am, or that I'm more of an artist now than I was then, just because I now write screenwriter on my taxes.
You just have to pay more taxes.
I just, but you know what? That's okay.
Really delightful conversation with him. Two things. I loved how he talked about his nerves before the opening, be it an off-Broadway show or these movies that millions see versus hundreds, exact same. And we may see a third pairing with Luca again on a movie. DC Comics' Sergeant Rock with Daniel Craig reportedly will happen with Justin doing that as well.
I just love the inspiration behind that first film being that Serena moment. I remember it. I was
so well,
there.
right?
And the emotion he does capture in that film of that, just like,
yeah, and
the intensity of it.
And
was
it
so
gave
real.
life to so much because it is living off that emotion and how you could take it inside.
And she did not cheat. One woman's opinion.